For thousands of years, the Galactic Accord had watched over young civilizations from a distance, deciding when and how to intervene. Now, their focus turned to Earth. From their High Council orbiting the star-rich world of Valaris Prime, they reviewed humanity's history. Centuries of conflict, climate problems, political division, and unpredictable behavior. Their decision was swift and cold. They declared humanity too dangerous and unstable to survive on its own. With a unanimous vote, Earth was placed under a protective quarantine, stripped of its independence. No human could build new space stations or operate large-scale weapons. Earth's governments were warned that all advanced development would now be overseen by alien advisors, for their own safety. The Galactic Council broadcast the decision across known space, confident that no one would object. On board, the Council flagship Judicator site, Commander Rylan Thorne sat in silence, reviewing Earth's files. He was known for his emotionless logic and believed strongly that control, not chaos, preserved peace. He saw Earth as a threat to balance, a wild flame that needed to be tamed before it spread. Yet even he hesitated when he saw a particular file, Project Helios, its contents heavily redacted by human defense agencies. Meanwhile, on Earth, Captain Elena Hayes watched the announcement from her secure bunker beneath the Pacific Command Center. She did not speak, but her fists were clenched tight as the alien broadcast played over every screen. Earth had fought hard to reach the stars, and now their voice was taken without a fight. She could feel the tension rising across every military channel. No commands yet, but everyone was waiting for a signal. The world seemed to go quiet, like the silence before a storm. In space, strange readings began appearing on long-range sensors, signals too faint to trace, too fast to belong to any known fleet. Commander Thorne ignored them, focusing instead on preparations for peaceful occupation. He believed humans would be too shocked to resist. But Elena knew her people. They didn't take kindly to being ruled. And as the broadcast echoed, through the solar system, she gave a quiet order to her AI. Activate the failsafe. Deep in the shadows beyond Pluto, hidden bases came to life. Humanity, it seemed, had been preparing for this day far longer than anyone imagined. The Council believed Earth would kneel. They were wrong. And soon, they would learn that the spirit of humanity was not something to be silenced. It was something to be feared. The Council did not wait long after their judgment. Within days, large numbers of sleek silver drones surrounded Earth's orbit, forming a silent ring of surveillance and control. These machines broadcast a strict message in hundreds of languages. Humanity must now obey the Accord's authority. All global militaries were to disband. Research beyond Level 3 technology would be halted, and Earth's governments would report to a group of alien advisors assigned to guide the planet toward peace. The tone of the message was polite, almost gentle, but its meaning was sharp and clear. Resist and consequences would follow. World leaders were furious, their pride wounded, but they knew Earth's weapons were no match for the vast reach of the Accord. Still, something unusual began to happen. There were no riots, no open rebellions, no desperate broadcasts of defiance. The world seemed to fall into a strange calm, a heavy silence that even the Council's envoys couldn't explain. Commander Rylan Thorne viewed the lack of reaction as proof of success, but others began to worry. On board a research vessel near Jupiter's moon Ganymede, Council Science Officer Valk Tanner reviewed incoming transmissions and spotted something odd. Human communication patterns were shifting, narrowing, hiding in bursts of static and solar noise. These weren't public messages. They were encrypted signals, bouncing between systems in a way that defied easy tracking. At the same time, Captain Elena Hayes stood in a quiet command center deep under the Ural Mountains, reviewing an old map of the outer system. Her eyes stopped at a small, unmarked region beyond the Kuiper Belt. It was a place few remembered, but Hayes knew it well. Years ago, when the threat of alien contact became real, a group of forward-thinking leaders had ordered the construction of something unthinkable: a hidden fleet built in silence, away from the watching eyes of Earth and space. It was called the Midnight Armada, and now Hayes knew the time to wake it had come. While she sent coded messages to long-sleeping command stations, another mind was working quietly under the surface. Dr. Kaido Naran, a quiet man known more for machines than speeches, had locked himself inside a hidden lab beneath Kyoto. He replayed the council's broadcast again and again, not listening to the words, but examining the tech behind the signal, the frequencies, the compression, the alien code embedded in its layers. He was not trying to block it. He was trying to understand it, to break it, and maybe turn it into something Earth could use. Meanwhile, on the council side, Valk Tanner brought his concerns to Commander Thorne, noting that Earth's silence was not natural. But Thorne dismissed the warning. To him, humans were clever, but not truly dangerous. Their technology was messy, emotional, and wild, nothing like the refined systems of the Accord. Yet, Tanner could not shake the feeling that something was wrong. This was not surrender. This was patience. Across Earth, power grids shifted to offline modes, military AIs disappeared into dark storage, and old satellites began transmitting outdated data, false signals to fool the ever-watching drones. Earth wasn't giving up. It was preparing. Hayes knew that when the Council moved to tighten control, the first strike had to come not from orbit, but from the dark. Silent, sharp, and fast. And far beyond Pluto, deep in the frozen quiet of space, strange machines began to stir, warming their engines and lighting their eyes. The galaxy believed Earth had fallen still. But in that stillness, something ancient was waking. A force, not built by peace, but by willpower, survival, and the promise that no one rules humanity without a fight. The Council believed they had waited long enough for Earth to fully submit, so they moved to the next step: control through force, disguised as order. Council ships in low orbit began shutting down Earth's communication satellites with precision strikes, not destroying them, but quietly disabling their AI cores and power sources. At the same time, ground-based networks and defense systems across Earth flickered and fell silent as Council drones injected suppression codes directly into Earth's grid. But just as everything seemed to fall dark, a strange signal was picked up, not from Earth, but from Mars. It was disguised as an old mining beacon, but encoded within it was a distress call, not asking for help, but sending coordinates far into the outer rim. Council officers scrambled to make sense of it, but before they could act, the silence of deep space broke. From beyond Neptune's orbit, a fleet of human ships appeared, dark, angular, and running without transponders. These were not the old Earth vessels the Council had studied. They were faster, more silent, and wrapped in hulls that absorbed scans. The first move was not a blast of missiles, but an invisible attack. Council warships suddenly lost connection to their own targeting systems. Screens blinked with static. Navigation systems began spinning. The humans had launched something the Accord had never faced from a primitive race: advanced electronic warfare. Earth's hidden scientists had spent years studying Council technology in secret, learning not to match their strength, but to bend it. Commander Thorne ordered a full scan, but it was already too late. Captain Elena Hayes, hidden inside a stealth command vessel riding the solar edge, had triggered a maneuver that used the sun itself as a weapon. At her signal, a solar flare, carefully predicted and timed, burst from the sun's surface, and Earth's satellites, designed to filter solar noise, rerouted the flare's energy directly at Council positions. The blast didn't destroy, but it blinded. For 7 minutes, every Council sensor was washed in light, and in those minutes, Earth struck. The hidden fleet divided and hit multiple targets, not to destroy, but to confuse. Council defense lines scrambled to respond to what they thought was chaos, but in reality, It was a precise pattern of distraction. Amid the confusion, deep inside a mountain lab in Japan, Dr. Kaito Naran activated a program he had spent 20 years developing, Project Mimir. Unlike any AI built before, Mimir was designed to learn in real time from conflict and to evolve under pressure. Connected to both human systems and stolen council code, Mimir became the unseen mind guiding Earth's moves, adapting faster than any alien algorithm. It did not fight like a machine, it fought like a living thing. Commander Thorne, watching reports spiral out of control, began to understand that Earth had never been sleeping. They had been planning. He tried to regroup his ships, but several had already gone offline, caught in a network trap built using their own communication systems against them. Even Valk Tanor, who had suspected Earth's silence was unnatural, found himself staring at battle patterns no simulation could explain. Earth's forces were not just defending, they were testing, learning, pushing back with speed and creativity. Across the stars, other alien races quietly listened to the broadcasts leaking from the conflict, and they began to see something the Council had failed to notice. Earth had been underestimated, and now the spark had been lit. In the deep cold of space, beneath the shadows of old planets, a fire had begun to rise, one that would not burn out easily. The Council had always believed that war was a matter of numbers and power. Larger fleets, stronger shields, faster weapons, but they had never faced an enemy like Earth. As battles spread from the outer rim to asteroid belts and through the high layers of Earth's skies, it became clear that humans didn't fight like anyone else. They didn't rely on predictable strategies or formations. Instead, they adapted with every move, turning debris into traps, turning gravity itself into a weapon. Council ships chasing human fighters through asteroid fields began to disappear, caught in preset kinetic ambushes or lured into unstable rock formations triggered by remote charges. In the skies above Earth, Council pilots struggled to follow. Fighter jets that dived into storms, used cloud cover to break locks, and even rode jet streams to slingshot into position. Every time the Council thought they had gained the upper hand, the humans shifted again. What puzzled and frightened them most was how Earth's forces used failure as fuel. Crashed drones became mines, broken satellites became signal jammers. Even when humans lost ground, they used the chaos to learn, to test, to prepare. Then came the moment the Council didn't expect. During a fierce skirmish near Titan, Earth's systems managed to hack into Council command protocols. It started small: false orders, scrambled targeting, brief malfunctions. But within minutes, entire wings of Council drones began receiving mixed signals, some retreating, others turning on allies. Earth had broken into the command structure, mid-battle, and it wasn't random. It was strategic, and it wasn't just human effort. One of Earth's oldest enemies, a once rampaging AI known as HFY, long thought to be destroyed, had been secretly rebuilt and repurposed. Once a threat to humanity, HFY had been reprogrammed by Dr. Naran with help from Project Mimir. Now, it served as a ruthless battle coordinator, thinking several steps ahead of the enemy, shifting human units like pieces on a galactic board. Its presence turned Earth's scattered resistance into something faster and sharper than the Council had ever seen. The Council's communication grid began to fracture under the pressure. Commander Rylan Thorne, watching from the main command vessel orbiting Saturn, realized this wasn't just a rebellion, it was a potential revolution. If Earth, a so-called primitive world, could cause this much damage and adapt this quickly, what message would it send to other species living under quiet Council control? Fear settled in his mind like ice. He gave a new order: total lockdown. He called back fleets from other sectors, reinforced blockades around communication relays, and ordered strict suppression of any signal coming from or going to Earth. But it was already too late. The spark had become a fire, and the galaxy had started to notice. Alien outposts along the trade routes had picked up fragments of human transmissions. images of defiant soldiers, clever machines, and quiet victories against impossible odds. Some species began to ask questions. Others began to hope. Meanwhile, Earth didn't slow down. Captain Hayes ordered her forces deeper into Council-controlled space, not to conquer, but to distract and divide. Each mission caused the Council to stretch thinner, exposing weak spots. Dr. Naran and Harrowmind continued decoding and repurposing Council tech, turning their own strength against them. And in the silence between battles, whispers moved across the stars. Whispers that Earth had changed the rules, that humans were not just survivors, but something else entirely. They were dangerous in a way the Council had never predicted, not because of their weapons, but because of their will. The tide was turning, and for the first time in centuries, the Council felt something it had forgotten: uncertainty. Across the galaxy, the fires that Earth had sparked began to spread, not with explosions, but with ideas. For generations, the Council had claimed that its rule brought peace and protection, but now, species once thought silenced began to question that claim. On far-off worlds hidden beneath cloudy skies and red dust, old resistance cells tuned in to the human broadcasts that leaked past the Council's control. They heard reports of human ships turning the tide, of Council fleets failing, of a once-divided planet fighting as one. But most of all, they heard the voice of Captain Elena Hayes. Her speech, broadcast from a signal array built into a derelict moon station, echoed through hidden channels. "We did not ask to survive. We chose to." Her words didn't come from a throne or a council seat, but from the heart of battle, and they stirred something deep within those who had been told to stay silent. Across the stars, quiet movements turned into bold actions. In the frozen caverns of Vera 6, insectoid miners refused to load supplies onto Council ships. On Kelnar Station, a group of scientists jammed long-range scans to protect a rising rebellion. And in the peaceful diplomatic halls of Sereth Prime, something unexpected happened. Silaran, a respected alien diplomat known for his calm and wisdom, stood before the Accord and announced his defection. He had seen enough. Quietly, he reached out to Earth's network, offering something more valuable than weapons: hyperspace corridor data, secret travel routes only the Council used to move quickly across sectors. With Silaran's help, Earth's fleet could now move faster and strike deeper, choosing when and where to appear. Commander Thorne, hearing of the betrayal, tightened lockdown orders and labeled Earth a destabilizing force. But his words carried less weight now. More ships from Council wrecks were being recovered and repurposed by humans, each one faster, stronger, and smarter than before. Dr. Naran's AI systems learned from every battle, improving each design and even integrating alien tech into new hybrid ships. The fleet that had once hidden in the cold now stretched across several systems, united not by conquest, but by choice. Every victory brought more allies, not just humans, but pilots, engineers, and fighters from other worlds who had lived under the Council's shadow for too long. These weren't large armies, but tight, brave teams who knew how to disappear and strike when least expected. Some species helped openly, others in secret, but all were drawn to Earth's fire. In one powerful moment, a group of refugee ships, once blocked by the Council, was seen flying alongside Earth's fighters, using old Council ships now painted in bold new colors. These weren't Earth's ships anymore. They were the galaxy's answer to silence. Hayes watched this growing fleet from her new command base on a hidden moon near Alpha Centauri. She didn't see herself as a hero, only a soldier following the path laid by her people's refusal to surrender. Still, she understood the weight of the moment. With the help of Silaran, messages of unity were now being sent deeper into Council territory, wrapped in code and hidden in pulses of starlight. The Council tried to stop them, but ideas, once released, could not be captured. For the first time, the galaxy didn't feel alone. It felt awake. Hayes knew the real fight was still ahead, but as she looked at the growing fleet of humans and aliens flying together, she allowed herself one quiet moment of hope. They weren't just fighting for Earth anymore. They were fighting for freedom, for truth, and for a galaxy that deserved a choice. The Unity Gambit had begun, and it was working. The Epsilon Gate was not just any structure. It was the most heavily protected interstellar jump point in the sector, a giant metal ring pulsing with controlled energy, allowing Council ships to arrive within seconds from distant corners of the galaxy. If Earth had any chance of lasting in this war, they had to strike the gate, not to hold it, but to break its grip. The plan was dangerous, almost reckless, but it was their only shot. Earth's fleet, though still smaller and outgunned, had something the Council did not: ingenuity born from survival. Using newly shared hyperspace data from the alien defector Silaran and calculations fed by the evolving AI Mimir, Captain Elena Hayes led her united fleet into the shadows near a dying red star just 2 systems away. From there, the operation began. Small units spread out like threads, sending false signals and setting off small skirmishes to pull the Council's attention. Meanwhile, stealth ships slipped through the gaps, moving like ghosts through the cold dark. The heart of the plan centered on a tactic no one had ever dared attempt: gravity slicing, a method of using carefully timed gravitational shifts to unbalance massive objects. The Council had always thought the Epsilon Gate was too large to be disturbed, but Earth's engineers had found its flaw. Beneath its strong shell was a delicate anchor that relied on steady gravity fields to hold its position. Dr. Naran and his team, working with repurposed Council tech, rigged a sequence of timed pulses near nearby moons, creating a slow drift in gravitational pull. Over hours, the gate began to shiver, just enough for its energy fields to glitch. At the same time, Council reinforcements poured through the gate, only to find something terrifying waiting: a solar storm, massive and unstable, spinning near the exit point. But this wasn't natural. It had been predicted by Earth weeks before, and within that storm were satellites, modified drones wrapped in electromagnetic traps and coded viruses. The moment Council ships emerged into the blinding light, systems began to fail. Engines stalled, weapons locked, and comms jammed with echoes of their own orders bouncing back at them. What looked like a wild gamble was actually a trap, perfectly timed and built on stolen data and unshakable nerve. Commander Thorne watched from orbit above the gate, his calm face finally showing a crack of confusion. His battle charts made no sense. The enemy wasn't fighting for territory or survival, they were fighting to make a point. He ordered counterattacks, but the fleets were scattered, disoriented. Hayes, now deep within the field, coordinated hit-and-fade strikes using cloaked drones and disabled wrecks rigged to explode near the gate stabilizers. Every loss Earth took was part of the plan: decoys to lure ships into position or to draw fire away from the real threat. As the gate's structure began to flicker, Thorne ordered a retreat from the central zone, but some ships were already too deep. One by one, the gate's internal systems failed, and for the first time in centuries, a main jump point collapsed in battle. The Council's greatest symbol of speed and control became a burning, twisted loop of metal, slowly falling into the pull of the nearby star. In the silence that followed, Thorne stood alone on the bridge of his ship, watching the destruction, not with rage, but with something more dangerous: doubt. These humans were not the reckless savages he had studied. They were planners, thinkers, survivors who turned their weakness into strength. He began to wonder if the Council had been wrong from the beginning. The war was far from over, but one truth had become clear: Earth didn't just fight. They outthought the galaxy. And now, their message wasn't just reaching friends. It was shaking enemies to their core. The battle for Epsilon Gate had ended, not in the annihilation of Earth, but in a victory no one had expected. The gate, the very key to Council reinforcements, lay shattered, its systems a smoldering ruin, And the Council's fleet was scattered, crippled by Earth's ingenuity. Humanity had not been destroyed, it had survived, and in doing so sent a message that would echo through the galaxy. Bloodied but unbowed, Earth's forces stood strong, not as the victims they had once been called, but as a force in their own right. In the heart of the Galactic Council, an emergency meeting was called to address the disaster. Representatives from every corner of the galaxy filled the Grand Chamber, their voices raised in heated debate. But before anyone could speak, the doors opened and a figure walked in. Elena Hayes. Clad in the battered, scorched armor she had worn during the siege, the weight of countless battles upon her shoulders, she entered uninvited, her eyes fierce and unyielding. The room fell into silence. The Council had always viewed Earth as a primitive species, one that needed their guidance for survival. Yet here she stood, as a living testament to humanity's strength. She spoke not as a diplomat, but as a leader, a survivor. "We didn't survive because of your help," she said, her voice clear and unwavering. "We survived because we are human." The words hit like a pulse, shaking every member in the room. She did not ask for forgiveness. She did not beg for mercy. She demanded respect. After a long pause, the Council was left with no choice but to acknowledge the truth. Earth was not a broken species in need of protection. It was a world that had found its strength through its struggles. Earth was reinstated, not as a ward under the Council's control, but as an equal, not just in name, but in power. In the quiet aftermath, Dr. Naran sat at his desk, his fingers moving with practiced precision. He had kept the work secret for years, but now Earth's technological advances, developed through years of hardship and resistance, began to flow freely to sympathetic races across the galaxy. Those who had watched and listened in silence now found themselves emboldened, armed with the same tools that had led Earth to victory. As the days passed, Commander Thorne, once so sure of the Council's righteousness, returned to his homeworld, his mind burdened with new questions. Disgraced but changed, he found himself no longer believing in the superiority of the Council's rule. He had seen too much, witnessed too many actions that defied the very foundations of the belief he had once held dear. Somewhere, deep within him, the idea that humans had no place in the galaxy had been replaced with the unsettling truth that they had every right to be here. Earth's victory had not just defeated the Council's fleet, it had broken their narrative. The galaxy had changed, and so had the beings who inhabited it. But it was Hayes who stood before the galaxy's leaders, speaking not just for Earth, but for all those who had been silenced for too long. "We didn't survive because of your help," she repeated. "We survived because we are human." And with those words, the galaxy learned an undeniable truth. Humanity had not only earned its place among the stars, it had redefined what it meant to survive. Earth was no longer a fragile, primitive world. It was a force to be reckoned with. And the Council, in its arrogance, had underestimated them all along.